Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with writer and published author Kern. This published author and writer is out to prove that writers are the true superstars of pop culture. He always dreamed of being a superstar author since he wrote his first book at 8 years old. Today, he has deals with the biggest publishers in the world and is ready to bring that dream to full manifestation. On this journey, he self-published his first 2 books and became a full-time writer while raising his daughter on his own. He built a name for himself through blogging and creating a community of readers under his brand called Cry. Enjoy this interview.
Thank you for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
So you got a very interesting story I'm looking forward to delving into, as a writer and a published author. But before that, I want to know, how did you survive COVID? How did you get through that 2+ year period? And how did it change the way that you live your life and the way that you conduct business now?
That's a good question. I think I was one of the fortunate people to where professionally it didn't impact me, and if anything, it probably helped me professionally. From the social aspect, it hurt me a lot because I wasn't able to go out as much. I'm someone who likes being around people. I live downtown Toronto, so I'm used to just kind of hopping out of my apartment and having an option to go to like 20, 30 bars, like literally on my street. So that was really tough for me personally. But as far as professionally in writing, it didn't hurt at all. More people wanted to share their stories, and I'm someone who helps people share their stories through ghostwriting. More people want to put out content. More people want to write books. So again, if anything, like, it really helped me, and it also gave me a little bit more space to write my own stuff and kind of hunker down on my own books. And over the 2-year COVID situation, I actually got my 2 biggest publishing deals with Penguin and Scholastic. So it didn't hurt me professionally at all. It just hurt me more socially.
Yeah, I think we all realize the community is definitely key. So I'm curious, how did we all have these seeds that get sprinkled in us? How did this love of writing, how did this journey begin in your childhood? Kind of, how did these things become who you are today?
Yeah, I would say my family, I was born in Trinidad, and I stayed there till I was like 6 years old. So the first 6 years of my life, I grew up in a house with my grandmother, my aunt, my uncles, my cousins. Like, everybody was in the same house. We lived in my grandfather's house. It was the same house. My mom was in Canada, kind of setting stuff up for us to come. So I actually grew up with my grandparents, like I said. So my aunt loved reading and had books and would walk me to school every day, and we would read every evening. So I started my love of reading super early on, and then that carried over to when I moved to Toronto. I moved to Canada when I was like 6. And then I just continued loving to read, and I wrote my first book when I was 8. So I was in grade 3. I wrote my first book, a book called The Battle. I still remember the title of it. So it's my journey started with my household, just like being around so many different people and having like all these stories in my head, like all the time. Like, it was just like running account of stories that I could just make up, and then moving forward to Canada and starting to write like for real, and then obviously getting to college and university and stuff like that, and turning it into something a little bit more professional.
So it was always writing for you. There was no other, dream that was what you wanted to grow up to become, a writer.
Yeah, I'm one of the lucky ones. I knew exactly what I wanted to do from day one, and I pursued that. I took writing in university. I just knew all throughout high school exactly what I wanted to do. And even though I was actually a really good basketball player, I got a scholarship to attend St. Bonaventure University, a basketball scholarship. So I was a really good basketball player. But even then, I still knew that whenever this basketball thing is over, like, I'm going to focus 100% on writing. So, and then I got injured my second year, going into my third year, and then it was over, and then I knew exactly what I wanted to do.
So what was the book growing up? What was the one book that really you still remember, that you reread, that really opened the curtains for you?
Beloved, Toni Morrison. That book changed everything for me. I read it once. First time I read it, I was in high school, like early high school, 9th or 10th grade. But then I reread it when I was about 19 or 20, or maybe, around 20, let's say. And I don't know, it was just, I couldn't believe someone could write so well, like I was almost jealous. But then it inspired me, and I was like, you know what, this is what I want to do. I want someone to feel the way I felt after reading Beloved. And that set my novel writing journey out in earnest. So that's when I first started writing my first book.
So who's been your role model or a hero in your life consistently?
Good question. I would have to start with my mom first, like as far as just being able to manage three kids on her own. Again, her ultimate sacrifice was leaving her kids for years so she could set up in Canada. You know, that's hard. My mom's a very loving person. My mom loves her kids. Her entire life is about us. So for her to leave for 2 years, I can't even imagine what she was going through. More than 2 years, actually. It was closer to 3 years. So I can't even imagine what she was going through. So that she just that it starts right there. But for actual heroes, it's difficult for me. I think I kind of turn to people, to writers who I admire, and I would consider them. I don't know if I would use the word heroes, but definitely inspirations. You know, like I love Khalid Hosseini and Marla James, and like I mentioned, Toni Morrison, of course. And I just looked at the way they wrote. Jhumpa Lahiri, she's an amazing writer. So to me, I look at the writers as inspirations, and as like examples of what I could become, more so than, I don't know if I call them heroes, but definitely I look up to them in that way.
If you can meet anybody alive on the planet right now, who would it be? Who would you love to meet and talk to?
Whew. Wow. One person? Whew. That's such a tough question. Maybe I would probably say Jay-Z. And I know he's not a writer, but I just feel like he's someone that took his situation and went all the way. So I'll be curious to know, like, what information do you know that I don't, that you're able to kind of take your situation and go all the way and then turn it back on itself and have an impact on the people that are also going through that situation, you know, because he does a lot for the community through his through just different organizations and through giving back and through the stuff he does for with jail reform and all that stuff. So like it's really great to see the giving back that he does, because my goal honestly is to have impact. Like that's how I judge things. I want to have impact. I want people to actually read my books and feel affected by it. I want people to look at my example and feel inspired by it. So for me, impact is a true kind of value that I'm looking to accomplish.
What is it that drives you every day? You know, we all have things that we look forward to, things that get us through the day, but what ultimately is your driving force?
I want to be the best writer in the world. And I know how probably corny that sounds, but I come from competition. Like I mentioned earlier, I played basketball my entire life growing up. The thought of trying to be the best, the pursuit of that goal really does motivate me. You know what I mean? So like, even if you put me in a room with Marlon James and you know, Khalid Hosseini, like maybe I won't say or like verbalize that, hey, I'm the best writer. I might not even think it in that room, but as I wake up and I'm writing and I'm like trying to put these novels together, put these stories out, I really do it with the thought that I want to be the best. I want my peers to look at my writing and be like, oh my gosh, I wish I could write like Kern, or readers to read it and feel like so inspired, or emerging writers to read it and be like, oh my gosh, that's what I want to do. Like I want to be the absolute best, you know, like I want my impact to be to be powerful and immense and spread. So yeah, that's really what drives me. It's competition.
So when you get to the end of the day, how do you quantify a good day? How do you look back and say that day worked for me?
If I wake up every morning and write, because I intentionally, not at first it was because like it was like situationally I felt like that was the only time I could write, but I wake up and write intentionally every day so that I know that no matter how the day goes, I still was able to do the thing I love the most, which is writing. So I wake up and write my novels every day for that reason. How do I judge whether a day is good or not now? It's how much writing did I get done? How good was the writing session? How much closer did I get to having the impact that I'm dreaming of having? And how am I nurturing this community that I've formed, this community of readers and writers? How did I nurture them? Did I take a step to help them in some way or create space for them in some way too? Because as I'm going through my journey and the more success I have, I'm also someone who loves just like opening the gates and being like, hey, everybody come with me. You know, I want to show everybody what I learned. So that's kind of how I judge it.
Let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into the younger version of yourself, and you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on what you've lived through, the wisdom that you've gained, the roads you've chosen to go down. What would you tell your younger version?
I would tell my younger version two things. The first thing is be patient. I was not always the most patient. I was always kind of in a rush, you know, like come on, Kern, get here, because I always knew in my mind that I would be where I am today and further. but I was impatient. I felt like I rushed things sometimes. So I'll tell myself to slow down. And then the other thing is I would actually tell myself to dream bigger sooner. You know, like I felt like for so long I was very uncomfortable. Like I would if you asked me the question about like where I just explained to you that I want to be the best writer in the world, if you asked me that like even 10 years ago, I would never articulate that to you. I would never say those words. Maybe even 5-6 years ago, I might not have said it like that. But I think being able to be comfortable with who I am, be comfortable with my goals, I would tell my younger self to dream bigger sooner, and not be afraid of that. Don't let any kind of negative thoughts, or not even negative thoughts, don't let any kind of obstacles or discouraging thoughts get in your way, especially my own, not anybody else's, but my own. Like dream big and dream bigger and dream bigger sooner.
What's been your best, most memorable fan letter you've ever received?
Oh, wow! I read a lot. I think one time when a reader said that they had a conversation with their parents, with their mother, at their breakfast table about my novel. That was like incredible. And then the other day, I got an email from someone who said that somebody else was talking to them about this book that they should read, blah 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 blah, and it ended up being my book. And like stuff like that, I love when people are kind of talking about me without me knowing it. I feel like, or not even about me, actually, I should say, about my books. Like, I love that. I think that's really helpful. And then, one more. I remember, this was actually a couple of years ago, where someone had read it wasn't even a novel, it was one of my blog posts when I used to blog more frequently. And they said that reading that post gave them the strength and the belief in themselves to actually leave their partner. They were in a horrible situation, but reading that helped them leave their partner. And I love that. And that's part of the impact I talk about, dreaming about having.
Kern, everyone out there has a perception of you, your family, your friends, your readers, but ultimately you live your life. You have a perception of you. Who do you think you are? What's your perception of yourself?
Wow, I don't think I've ever been asked that question. You know, I'm someone who I think is very confident in my ability to write and share stories. I would say I'm also someone who's more and more I'm realizing that I am an inspiration for people. But there's still a very big part of me that just really feels like a child. You know, like I just feel like I'm this kid who just wants to play, you know, and writing is my playground, you know, books are my playground. Like that's a big part of me just feels like that, you know, just like a child. And the other thing too is like I went to Puerto Rico last week for a business conference, and they said something that really resonated with me. They said that courage comes before confidence. And that has been me my entire life, my entire journey. You know, there are times when I was really unsure about ever getting published or ever getting noticed at all, and getting any attention to my writing. But I still stepped out there. Like I still put out my books, and I still continue to blog. I've been writing for forever, but like really professionally since 2008. You know, and for a long time without any kind of recognition. So for me, just being courageous without even having much confidence was actually super important to my journey. And I think it led me here. So now that I'm actually confident, it feels great. And I don't feel like I'm in an arrogant space because I understood what I took to get here. So for me to say these things and to say that I'm confident is really me kind of acknowledging the long journey that I've been on to get to confidence, and how much courage it took to get here. So I'm actually really proud of that.
So Kern, if anybody wants to learn more about you, get your books, anything related to your world, where's the best place for them to go?
KernCarter.com, KERN Carter.com. Everything is there. All my books, all my writing, it's all there.
Easy enough. Kern, hey man, thank you for taking time out. Best of luck in the future. Have a great 2023, man.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.